New women began in the 19th century, and by the end of the 19th century, most income-producing activity moved from the home into the factory or office. Children began school at an earlier age, and with new household items, housework became easier and took up less time. Middle-class white women in the late 19th century had less children. They also lived longer after their children were grown up. Some educated women didn't believe in marriage. Approximately 10% of American women didn't marry in the last decade of the 19th century. Most of them being middle class, single women showed the most change, such as Jane Addams, Lillian Wald, Anne Howard, and Frances Willard. Some women lived with other women in long-term relationships, some secret romantics known as the Boston marriages. The divorce rate rose in the late 19th century, one divorce every 21 marriages in 1880, and one divorce in every 9 marriages in 1916. In the late 19th century, women had the most significant number of educational rates beyond high school. In the 20th century, more women left their homes and became more independent.
In the 1920s, there was a group of psychologists that spread the idea that a woman's instinctive way of raising a child was not a sufficient way of raising a child, and that mothers should rely on the advice of professionals like teachers, doctors, and nurses. This way of parenting was unemotionally fulfilling for women. They made up for this by becoming more devoted to their husbands. They started wearing makeup and paying more attention to how they looked. The idea that the sexual relationships with their husbands should not be just for procreation became more popular. Therefore, the diaphragm and other methods of birth control were created. Women of the new era started smoking, drinking, and dancing and wearing seductive clothing and makeup to strive for physical and emotional success and development. They expressed themselves through dress, hairstyle, speech, and behavior. The flapper image was mostly for the upper class women and less for the lower middle class women. There was an important expansion of educational opportunities for women in the post-Civil War era. There were few at first, but in the years after the war, many of the colleges began accepting women. The creation of a network of women's colleges became crucial in the education of women. Many new female institutions were emerging where female students would not be treated as second-class citizens. The female college was the emergence of a distinctive women's community. Over 25% of women did not marry, but instead devoted themselves to careers. The growth of education was a liberating experience, persuading women to perform roles in society in addition to those of wives and mothers. A growing proportion of the workforce consisted of women with pink-collar jobs. These were low-paying service occupations such as secretaries, sales clerks, telephone operators, and other unpaid jobs.
The club movement increased public roles of women in the 19th to 20th century. Women's clubs began to provide middle and upper-class women an outlet. In 1892, the General Federation of Women's Clubs was formed to coordinate activities of local organizations. There were more than 100,000 members and nearly 500 clubs. In the 1900s, there were 160,000 members, and in 1917, over 1 million. In the early 20th century, clubs became less concerned with cultural activities and more concerned with contributing to social betterment. Many members were wealthy. Black women sometimes joined white women's clubs, although most of them excluded blacks. Most blacks started their own clubs, which became part of the Independent National Association of Colored Women. There were some committed feminists, such as Charlotte Perkins Gilman. In 1898, she wrote a book called Women and Economics. The clubs planted trees, supported schools, libraries, and settlement houses, built hospitals and parks, and in 1912, they pressured Congress into establishing the Children's Bureau of the Labor Department, an agency to develop policies to protect children. Trade League was founded in 1903 by feminine union members.
Women were excluded from most emerging professions, but entered professional careers nevertheless. Many established themselves as physicians, lawyers, engineers, scientists, and corporate managers. However, society provided appropriate jobs for women, such as teaching and nursing. These jobs usually involve working primarily with women and children.
The largest single reform movement of the progressive era was the fight for women's suffrage. Some arguments were that women deserved the same rights as men, especially voting. Men believed that women would serve first and foremost as wives and mothers. A group called the National American Woman Suffrage Association grew from 13,000 members to over 2 million in a period of 24 years. Triumphs began in the 1910s. Alice Paul believed that there should be an anti-suffrage for women's amendment to secure women's rights, but others opposed it. In the end, the suffrage movement produced only the right for women to vote.
Pressing women's rights. The National Women's Party was under the leadership of Alice Paul. During their campaign for the Equal Rights Amendment, they found little support in Congress. After the suffrage victory, women organized the League of Women Voters, and in 1921 the women kept a secure passage in Congress of a measure in keeping with the traditional feminist goals of securing protective legislation for women. The Shepard-Towner Act provided federal funds to states to establish prenatal and child health care programs. Margaret Sanger discouraged birth control, and in 1929, Congress terminated the Shepard-Towner Act.
You're a jerk. I know. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. I know. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. I know. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. I know.
Right! I'm gonna make this basket. Okay, you go for it. Ready for this?
Right, so ready for this.
I'm gonna go.
Okay.
Ready for this? I'm ready for this. Come on, ready? You ready? I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this.
Oh, wait. He's not in the thing.